men down, bullies, blow the men down.
To me waiting, blow the men down.
Blow the men down, bullies.
I'm Paul Bennett at Shoestring Shipyard here in Millbridge, Maine. We're located along Maine's Bold Coast, not very far from the U.S.-Canadian border. I apologize for any wind noise you might hear. I don't have an external microphone with a windsock, so I'm just working with what I have. And right now, when money does become available, materials for the boat have priority because it's not much. So I've got some epoxy here, just regular epoxy. I don't have any thickener in it. And this keel here has been completely covered in fiberglass, but now what I'm doing is I'm going to apply some heavy, I think it's like 12-ounce fiberglass tape, and I'm putting it on the edges all around the keel. That gives it more abrasion resistance and makes it a little bit tougher, stronger, and so that's just for good measure because it's already got at least a couple of layers on here of 6-ounce fiberglass. So this is just a little bit extra. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to apply some epoxy resin to the surface first, and then I'll apply the fiberglass tape, which I've already cut to length. Try to get it reasonably centered. And because I already have the epoxy on here, it helps. The tape sticks to it, it's not falling off on me. It'd be worse if I tried to apply the tape while the surface was dry and then apply the epoxy. That would give me a lot of problems there. But this is going to work out just fine. And I'll apply a little bit more epoxy here on the surface so it can soak in. And then I'm going to go over it with a roller to help press it down and get rid of any air bubbles that might be there. This type of application is fairly straightforward. And this roller will also absorb any excess epoxy there that's dripping down, because those drips get pretty ugly and they're a pain to sand off, because this epoxy doesn't have any of that light phenolic microballoon filler that makes it more sandable. It makes it very hard, so it's tough to sand. And before I put the top strip on, I have a little short piece, and I snipped it a little bit here to help it make the corner here, the transition of the corner. Get a little bit more epoxy on there. That will help. And what's going to happen is because of this, because it has to make this turn, it's not a hard turn, but the epoxy, this is very heavy cloth, this tape, and it would bunch up. So that's why I snipped it, so it can overlap there. That looks okay. And having a little extra cloth here on the corner, that just makes that a little bit tougher, because that's, these type of things, these corners, they're prone to hitting things and chipping, and gives a little bit more resistance to that. It may not lay down perfectly flat. There might be an edge or two that sticks up, but that's okay because I have enough covering on here. I can always snip it off a little bit, you know, grind it later on after everything's cured. I just want to have that a little extra protection around that corner. And I might add a little bit more glass around there as well later on. At this point, I'm going to continue wetting out this top piece, and then I have a piece of fiberglass that's already cut, fiberglass tape that's already cut and ready to go, and it's just a repeat procedure of what you just saw here. And the same thing on the other end of the keel.
To say you should hear it. Oh, I'm happy to make time for your feelings, but you have to admit I already do. Let's just break it down to you and me uptown, dancing all around.
Well, once again, it's you know, we have rain coming. It's Monday, August 2nd. And storm clouds have been moving in. We're going to have a lot of rain this afternoon, but I'm going to risk it. I'm going to put some of this El Cheapo bottom paint, Rust-Oleum bottom paint, onto the Ballast keel mold here, and I'm going to take the risk that it'll dry enough to where the rain really won't affect it by the time it comes. And maybe tomorrow, nicer day, I can get maybe 2 or 3 more coats on there. We'll see how it goes. I'm putting this bottom paint on now for the simple reason that it's a lot easier to do it, getting it on the bottom. Then once the keels are in place on the boat, at least the bottom parts are coated where I won't be able to get to them where it's up on blocks. Just seems to make sense. Let's see how this goes. And I'm not going to go, of course this is upside down, I'm not going to go all the way to the top. I'm going to leave a few inches because once these keels are in place on the hull, and they're all bolted solidly in place, I'm going to go around and fillet the edges with epoxy, thickened epoxy, and then tab in some fiberglass tape and do a few layers there. That'll give it a little bit extra strength. In the other keel I'm working on, that is almost ready at this stage. It has fiberglass cloth on one side. I still have to do the other side, and I have to run the heavier fiberglass tape around the edges, and then of course do the sanding. At least it shows a little bit of progress. And just seeing a little bit of progress is good for me because it helps keep my motivation going. Just keep working on the boat. The more progress you see, you get significant changes. I don't know about you, but sometimes you start to wear out a little bit, And just by seeing a major change, something like this, like paint, it looks like you're getting closer and closer to the finish line. And that gives you, or it gives me, a little bit of extra charge in the old battery. Keep moving along. It looks like I'm going to have to buy another can of that El Cheapo bottom paint, because I still have to coat the bottom on, even though the boat has a couple of coats on it, it's going to need a couple more anyway. But I do have enough to do these ballast keels without any problem. Get maybe 3 coats on each. That should be enough for the time being, and then before it goes in the water it'll get another coat. So I think you get the gist of what I'm doing here. The next stage is once both of these keels are finished to the point where I have a paint on them like this one, they're going to go right side up, and I'm going to make some holders, or I don't know what you want to call it, some kind of a rack that they'll fit into. That'll keep the sides from expanding, you know, when the concrete and scrap steel is added, but it also holds them upright, because they need to be upright when they're put underneath the boat and put into position. And then I have to make the rebar reinforcing grid that goes inside it, and I have to weld keel bolts to them and everything, and make sure they're all in the proper location, and then make a template so I know where to drill the holes on the bottom of the boat. And then from there, it's just figuring out how to get these things moved around and in position so I can install them. And the boat construction will go a lot faster once I have these keels in place permanently. And even though they are keel bolts, I don't really intend for these to come off again. And that's why I'm tabbing them with the fiberglass. The keel bolts gives a lot of extra strength in holding them in place, but I get additional bonding with the fiberglass cloth, the filleting and all that sort of thing. And I think this is going to work out quite well.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?